Just leave it to me.
No!
Okay. Just leave it to me. I understand. Just...
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Greatest Generation, and today I finally get to talk about one of my favorite games of all time. I know I've promised that I'm going to talk about some of the bad games of the Xbox 360 generation as well, and I will get to that. In going through my collection and looking at different games and deciding, you know, kind of compiling a list of what games I want to talk about with this show and what I want to highlight, even though I do want to highlight some of the games that are just bad to downright really shitty. I decided that I wanted to do a game that I really love a lot, that it gets attention, but I don't feel it gets enough attention or enough love, and it recently just had, last fall, its 10th anniversary. There's a slew of games in this franchise, but the original is still probably the best one, although I have my days where sometimes I think the sequel is a little bit better, and then other days I think the original one's better. I kind of flip back and forth. But the game that we're talking about today is Dead Rising, the original Dead Rising. I love this game to death. I had kind of an in and out with it when it first came out. The thing that made Dead Rising special that you don't see a lot anymore is it was a new original IP when it came out. It wasn't a sequel, it wasn't something else. This was new. This was different, and not only was it different enough that it was a new IP, it also offered different ideas, different gameplay mechanics, stuff that you hadn't seen in games before. It is a survival horror game, but it's a different kind of survival horror game. It really isn't about scares. Like, it has its moments, I guess, but it's not. It interjects horror with comedy, balances both of those really well, but it has different, and we'll discuss today what the different things about it is, but it has different gameplay mechanics that were new and unique in 2006, and even today, going back, they did a remaster of it, which in fact here I have both copies. So I have my original copy from 2006 put up here. That's what it looks like. And then last fall, for the 10th anniversary, Capcom's been kind of on this thing about re-releasing their old properties and quote-unquote remastering them for next-generation consoles, you know, like Xbox One and PS4, so I had to pick up Dead Rising 10th anniversary. I guess it's not really a 10th anniversary edition, but that's what I'm going to call it. And this is a fantastic version of this game. It is also, for the first time, available on a PlayStation platform, which this game was a 360 only exclusive, and then some of the subsequent sequels like Dead Rising 2 and Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, both are also fantastic games, and at some point I will do an episode on those as well down the road. Those came to the PS3 well, but Dead Rising, the original, was an Xbox 360 exclusive. It wasn't even on PC. It never came out on those platforms. It was a 360 game only. That was the only way you could play it for 10 years. And then, last fall, they did a remaster of it. They upped it to 1080p 60 frames, and they put it out on Xbox One, PS4, and PC. So it's really cool for PlayStation people that never got that game to actually finally be able to sit down and play it. So what is Dead Rising? In this game, you star as Frank West, who is a photojournalist slash reporter. He's a fantastic character, and it was fun in 2006 to get a new character in a video game that you didn't expect, and that was one of the reasons why, and I'll discuss this more in a later episode when I do Dead Rising 2, but that was one of the reasons why when Dead Rising 2 came out, I didn't get it right away because I wanted to play as Frank West. Dead Rising 2 is a totally different character in a totally different city. That's not a bad thing at all. But, however, I wanted to play as Frank West again, and that didn't happen because I love the character of Frank West. He's awesome. Even though the most recent Dead Rising 4 does try to bring back Frank West, they did recast his voice, which sometimes I have a problem with that in games, and sometimes I don't. Like, for example, I won't play the most recent Splinter Cell game because they recast Michael Ironside, and he is a pivotal part of that game. I understand why they recast him, but it was stupid to do that and then make him older in the game, but then make him look younger. Like, that whole thing didn't make sense, and it rubbed me the wrong way. So, however, sometimes recasting voice makes sense. It makes sense in something like Metal Gear Solid 5, for example. The character you play as in that game, Big Boss, or Solid Snake, was voiced by David Hayter for the last 20 years, and then with that game instead, you know, Kojima decided to voice him with Kiefer Sutherland, who I also personally love. So it wasn't a put down for me, but I understand why fans of the series were put down when the game came out, that it wasn't David Hayter. However, there is a reason why that recasting works, and at the end of it, it totally makes sense why that voice actor was recast. I'm not going to spoil that here for you. Maybe at some point I'll do a video on Metal Gear Solid 5. It is one of the best games of this generation for sure. But anyways, that's a totally separate side trail topic. So, Dead Rising is a fantastic and interesting game. It is different than anything that you've played, that I had played up until 2006. And the thing that was fun about it was the first year of the Xbox 360 was special because, like, big hyped up games in that first year, like E3 2006 was really big because that was the first time they talked about Halo 3. That was the first time they really hyped up Gears of War, which was their new franchise that started in the fall. You know, that was over 10 years ago now, and we're up to Gears of War 4. Gears of War 4, also, Gears of War will be on this channel at some point, but one of the games at E3 2006 shown, and it probably was shown earlier than this, but I don't remember, was Dead Rising, and it captured my attention then because it was a Capcom game, which Capcom is known for one of my favorite, if not my favorite franchise of all time in video games, besides Castlevania, which is Resident Evil, and I looked at it and thought, yes, like, that looks cool, that looks interesting, and it's something new, it's something different. So, on August 8th, 2006, Dead Rising was released to the general public, and I pre-ordered the game. I picked it up day one. One of my buddies picked up the game day one too, and we were both blown away at how different this game is. You start out, you have a reoccurring level for your character with Frank West, and you level him up by doing different things, by killing zombies, by taking pictures. He's a photojournalist, so you can take pictures, and that's a whole mechanic in this game. There's part of this game in which basically you're taking photos of different things. Sometimes there's stickers that you have to take photos of. There's actually an achievement for getting all the P stickers is what they're called, which PP stands for prestige points, but it's fun to say the word PP. So but that's basically a huge thing in this game, for sure. In Dead Rising 4, basically what happens is you are a photojournalist, Frank West. He is sent to the town of Willamette, Colorado, fictional town, to investigate kind of bizarre sightings of... Basically, there's a big government conspiracy. So you are airlifted by chopper after he kind of paid somebody to take him over in the chopper. And as you're kind of going along and looking at what's going on, you realize, like, there's a zombie outbreak, but you don't know that's what it is, essentially. But you kind of see, like, there's crowds of people on the streets and stuff, and shit goes bad. So you tell the pilot, hey, drop me off at this mall, and you get dropped off there, and you have 3 days. So the minute you step foot on the actual mall rooftop, essentially, you have 72 real-time hours, and time passes shorter than, like, actually 72 hours of real time. It's a lot shorter in the game. I think if I calculate it, as someone who's played a lot of this game, one of my proudest things, and I'll show even in this video, is I sat down and got all the achievements in this game. I have such a love for this game, and I always wanted to do it on the 360, but I never had the patience. And with this remaster, I felt it was the time to sit down and really do that. So I sat down and I did that this past February. But actually right before I started this channel. Anyways, It's about 6 hours, I think, of real time to get through. It's 6 to 8 hours. Basically, you come in and shit goes bad, and then you get down. You after you get through there, you go through like a maintenance, like security area, and then you go down to the front lobby, and that's where people are kind of holed up and everything's going bad. And then there's this dumb woman whose dog kind of runs through the front gates of the mall, and she sees the dog in there, and she decides, well, I'm going to open these doors even though there's just zombies are everywhere, and that's how the zombies kind of get in and start killing all these people. From that point forward, you make your way back to the security room, you meet some other characters, and essentially that starts the story of the game. So what's different about Dead Rising is you can play the story, but it's a game that is made to be replayed over and over again in different ways. So there's always going to be a time limit, and depending on what you're doing for each run of the game, it depends on how you're going to play the game. It will affect the time limit. So first time you sit down and play the game, obviously you're going to want to play the story of the game. That's the point of it, and that makes sense. That's what you're going to want to do. But other times you might be doing what's called a survivor run. So one of the achievements in this game is you have to get, there are 3 achievements to do this. You have to get 10, 20, and 50 survivors out of the mall. And let me tell you, getting 50 survivors out of this mall is a bitch. Enemy AI is fine, but the survivor artificial intelligence in this game is horrible. It is horrendous. It is 2006 AI. It was one of the most frustrating things I've ever done in a video game. It has gotten progressively better in recent Dead Rising games. Dead Rising 2 was a little bit better, but Dead Rising 2 introduced wonderful co-op that's not in the original game. Dead Rising 3, the AI was better, and then Dead Rising 4, they just decided, let's not do the survivor thing anymore, so you just kind of save survivors and then they run off. You don't have to actually go through the way of getting the survivor back to the save room. They just kind of run off on themselves after you save them, and that's boring. Like, that's not what I wanted. But in the original Dead Rising, it is a bitch to get these people back to the safe room, and sometimes, you know, they do stupid things. Some of them won't take weapons, some of them you have to carry, some people are injured. And then later on, some of them become really, really bitchy in the room. Some of them want, like, there's one dude who wants you to bring wine. There's one point you have to avert a mutiny because of this one guy threatens to take, like, an entire room of these people out. To get outside to safety, so you have to do certain things to do that. Like, that's a whole separate part of this game. That's one part, and that's one way you can play the game. Another way you can play the game, obviously, just play through the story. There's also achievements. The achievements are a big part of this game. This was actually one of the first games that I really kind of gave a shit about the achievements. Before that, you know, achievements were a new thing, and I was kind of learning, like, hey, that's cool. Here's incentives to do things in games. And obviously later on Sony introduced trophies, but trophies have never been as cool as achievements, at least in my opinion. But Dead Rising was one of the first games I really seemed to give a shit about the achievements. There's some insane achievements in this game. The hardest one, and the one that took the most time for me, and will be take the most time for anyone that attempts to do that in this game, is 7-Day Survivor. So in this achievement, there is a separate mode in the game. It's really, really cool, to be fair, and I wish they put this mode in subsequent Dead Risings, but it was only ever in the original Dead Rising. Rather than it being story-focused, there's no story in this mode, and you have to survive for 7 days. They calculated out in the game exactly enough amount of food for you to survive for 7 days, and then instead of saving survivors, all of the survivors are also enemies, on top of there being zombies everywhere. And when you kill them, they drop items, most likely food, but they also will drop, like, weapons and stuff, essentially. So in this mode, it is hard. Hard as hell. It took me 2 attempts to get this achievement done. The first time I failed on the 6th day because I was stupid for whatever reason and decided, well, I'm going to leave my guy parked in this corner for a little bit and I'm going to go take a shower. And I came back out and I looked at the thing after I took a shower because I was getting ready to go to work, and I looked at the health bar and I noticed he still had a couple bars, and I was like, that's okay. So I started getting, you know, dressed and prepared for work, heard him go, ah, and fall over dead, and realized, oh shit, he's dead. I just lost 6 days of progress in this game. You have to start from the beginning. There's no saving in that mode. It's a real bitch, but it's fun. It's challenging and it's different, and I wish games even today were more challenging like that. You don't get anything like that anymore. They never put this mode in any other Dead Rising, which is kind of a shame because it's something I really appreciated and found unique in this. An idea involving the zombie outbreak in this game is unique and different too. So in this game, it is a plague that's come up from Mexico. It's transported by essentially, I believe, bees or some sort of bug. I want to say it's bees. And so basically in the game, you can some zombies will be kind of doing this like thing where they're trying to grab this thing off their neck, which is the bug. You can take it off, throw it down, and stamp on it, and that actually causes all the zombies in the immediate area for their heads to blow up, and that's kind of cool too. But it's a unique take on a zombie outbreak. Dead Rising also, you have to beat the story in a certain way, and then you unlock overtime mode, which is how you get the true ending of the game, and that also adds another day to the game, more objectives, and that lengthens the game too. There's a lot of content in this game. If I'm being honest, like it has content in a way that you don't see in video games today, because video games today are, a lot of them are about, hey, let's cut this out and make this DLC, or let's cut this out and we'll put this into a season pass or something. And this Dead Rising game did not do that, and thankfully, like, even Dead Rising 2 didn't really do it either. Dead Rising 3 and especially 4 did this in a terrible way. In fact, 4, one of the reasons that I was really put down on 4 at the end of it, and to be fair, I like Dead Rising 4, I like all of the Dead Risings, I've enjoyed each of them for their own reasons, but one thing I hated about Dead Rising 4 was, when I got to the end of that game, and you beat it, it then basically tells you this isn't the end of Frank West's story, you have to wait for this DLC and buy the season pass, which I did right away, not meaning that, oh, it'll be like a week and it'll be out. It took them 4 months to get that DLC out, and it was disappointing. It was whatever. So it wasn't the worst thing. Like, I didn't hate it, but I was disappointed in it. And that's just video games in 2017. But, you know, 10, 11 years ago, that wasn't the case. DLC wasn't a thing, so people made more complete games. The other huge aspect I love about Dead Rising, especially more recently, but even back then I love about it, is I have kind of a fascination with not only urban exploration, but also dead malls. In fact, there's been some YouTube channels in at least the last year that I've really been following, like Dan, and I encourage anybody watching this to follow them as well, as like Dan Bell. There's a channel I follow called The Proper People. They're pretty good. I also follow a channel called Retail Archaeology. There's some other ones I follow too, but I have a fascination with dead malls. And Dead Rising has a really good mall in it. So does Dead Rising 2, to be fair. And Dead Rising 4 actually has a decent mall as well. But the original Dead Rising, I think, has my favorite mall of the two. But it's fun to go around. I like the cheesy mall music in that game. I like going in and out of each store. It's really fun. It's really interesting and unique. And it's something you never really saw in any other games like this. No other franchise or series has done this kind of setting, and I really like that aspect of this game. I have a fascination with dead malls, and that's another part of this game that I really enjoy. There's other fascinating and interesting characters in Dead Rising that you will meet. One of my favorite things about this game too, and this is something else they kind of got away with in later installments in this franchise, is so not only does Dead Rising have different ways you can play the game, and it has a whole photo side of it where you're taking photographs and stuff, but there is also an aspect of it that involves psychopaths. So the psychopaths in this game are essentially bosses that you fight. I believe there are 10 or maybe 11 of them in this game, but each one is unique and different. They all have their own story, cutscenes, and they all have their own introductions. They're all done extremely well. One of my favorites is Adam the Clown. Adam the Clown is in the Wonderland Plaza. So there's different plazas in the game, which I'll discuss that in a minute too. He's the Wonderland Plaza, and basically he's just kind of dicking around with this. There's a motorized ride that's going around that he has somebody on. You have to fight him. He wields 2 chainsaws, and he's just crazy. All of the psychopaths in this game are crazy as hell. This is a fantastic part of this game too. Each psychopath in this game feels unique and different. No 2 psychopaths in this game are the same. And then another aspect, as we were talking about, like the mall in this game, one thing that I really like about Dead Rising is the mall. Each section of the mall seems different. So in the mall, there's basically like there's an entrance plaza where you start the game. There's Paradise Plaza, which is kind of like your main area that you go to. There's also, in the center of the mall, there's an outdoor park. There's Wonderland Plaza, and then there's an East Plaza that is under construction. There's a food court, and there's Alfresco Plaza, which is kind of an interesting plaza that's like outside. And then tying all this together, there's an underground tunnel system that's really cool too. But the thing I'll say about this mall is huge, man. Like, it's big. And subsequent Dead Risings had big malls as well. This mall, though, for 2006, this seemed really big. And it still does, even going back to it today. It's really big and still impressive for today's standards as well. The last thing I will say about Dead Rising is when it came out, it was a technical marvel. The fact that it was rendering this many zombies on screen at once, this many characters, and not really falling under any kind of frame rate issues. Like, the original Dead Rising definitely has frame rate issues at time. Those frame rate issues are resolved in the most recent remaster of the game, but it does have frame rate issues as well, but not as bad as you think, and it doesn't bog down the game nearly as horrible as anyone would think. Dead Rising, the original Dead Rising, I love this game to death. It's something I strongly encourage everyone to play, anyone to play it. It's fun, it's unique, it's different, it has so many things going for it. It has fascinating music, an incredible storyline. It's funny and charming at times, but also serious at other times. It has these fantastic bosses that are unique and different to any other kind of game that you'll play. It's an incredible experience, and it does have good sequels. So do not think that Dead Rising 1 is good and the rest are crap. They're not. Dead Rising 2 is also a fantastic game, and also one of my favorite games of all time because of its co-op experience. And that's a real big part of that, and that'll be explained in a later video. But for this video, I just wanted to focus on the original Dead Rising. It's awesome. You should play it. Go out and buy a copy. The remaster is super cheap. It's like 20 bucks, if that. You can also probably get it if you're a PC person. You can get it on Steam for probably even cheaper at this point. But it's a fantastic game. If you're a guy out there and you just have an Xbox 360, you haven't upgraded, you can go to a GameStop or you can go online. You can get the game for like under $5. Like, it's kind of insane how cheap this game is now. But pick it up, play it, enjoy it, give it its time. It's a fantastic game. I love it. It's definitely one of the best games of the last generation and of the greatest generation. Anyways, until next time.